Hello, everybody. My name is Audrey Taylor Quinier. I'm former CTO at Spartan Labs, which is the venture studio arm for Spartan Group, and I'm currently head of Nanupanda Labs, which is a dev studio building at the intersection of AI and Web3. And so today I want to talk to you all about agents as the new APIs. And this talk is really just an exploration of what software looks like in the future as things become more agentic, the way we use software and build software. So this is just kind of an exploration of what that might look like if we're looking in a Web3 context. Okay, so if we think about software and applications, everything up until now has really been built with humans in mind. So as we go through this talk, I just want you to think about what does that look like if your next user is not a human, but is actually an agent. There was a great talk just recently at AI Startup Studio held by Y Combinator by Andrew Karpathy, and he basically said software is changing again. And in this talk, he spoke about how English is becoming the new coding language. You see more English and human readable takes on GitHub, push repos, etc. And he's saying that now agentic development of software as well as agentic software itself is becoming the new norm for software development. So I want to add to this wonderful talk that Andrew Karpathy gave and say not just software is changing, but also the way software is consumed is changing as well. So if we just do like a quick timeline of how we've been interfacing or interacting or consuming software, you can start kind of with like old school B2B mainframes that was just kind of terminals and processing systems for businesses. Then you had the rise of like personal computers, which brought on personal software that could be a floppy disk or an AOL CD that you get mailed to your house, etc. And then you had the rise of SaaS and cloud interfaces, where then you have websites, APIs, SDKs, etc. And that's kind of how software has been built for, the last 30 years or so. But now we're in this agentic era. So now the way we interface with software is changing. We have, chat, we have tool abstraction, we have MCP servers. But then we're still in an area where this still needs to be fully developed. So the previous software that we've had has always been human-centered, built for human eyes. So you have HTML and CSS that makes things human readable. You have call to actions on websites or buttons on a dashboard that helps the users navigate through the software or the application. And even to go so far as to have like bot blockers or verify that you're human. Everything has meant the internet and applications have all been around humans as the primary consumers of the internet and consumers of applications. And a lot of times automated interactions with websites or applications is seen as kind of adversarial. But as we are getting to a place where we're asking agents and LLMs to do more tasks for us, like building websites or searching for a ticket on Kayak, we have to rethink the idea that humans are the primary consumers of this technology and think about agentic software or LLMs also being consumers. A16Z just recently put out a blog post, and they said the internet has always been optimized for humans, but now it needs to be optimized for LLMs, which are consuming the information, summarizing it, and giving it to humans instead. And there was so many stats about how where there's less queries, search queries happening on Google and more search queries happening within LLMs. So now LLMs are becoming a primary consumer of the internet. But not just a primary consumer of the internet, they're becoming the primary source of discovery and implementation for software as well. Because now with the rise of vibe coding, or even in a traditional dev environment, using AI to help you plan your architecture, research new third-party integrations, etc., you have LLMs or Claude Code or OpenAI Codex actually being able to tell you the best way to implement or build software. So this is an example. I prompted ChatGPT to create a website that sends me a SMS reminder every time my friend has a birthday, or my friends have a birthday, so that I don't forget. And the LLM is able to very clearly articulate how to build the software, and it even goes as far as to tell me what type of APIs I need in order to complete the software. You need maybe a Twilio API, you need some sort of database configuration, maybe Firebase or Superbase, etc. So it's able to understand, to discover what integrations it needs. It's able to implement those integrations, but there is a bottleneck, and the bottleneck is this human-centered design that we have for software. Because even though the agent or the coding agents are able to do all of this planning and implementation for the code, humans still need to sign up with an email, do some sort of two-factor authentication. They have to set up the API keys. They have to put in a credit card potentially if it's a paid service. All of this becomes a bottleneck, and it becomes a blocker for the coding agent to actually implement the things that it already understands how to do. So I believe with the rise of vibe coding, and then also this idea of like personalized software creation. So let's say if you want a Monday.com solution, you don't actually need to sign up for Monday.com. You could actually prompt OpenAI Codex to create an Monday.com for you. I believe a new transition that we might see is this monetization strategy via APIs. So a Monday.com could actually do monetization through API, which is sharing some of the functionality, some of the data, some of the features that it has via an API that can be then plugged into any interface that Claude Code or OpenAI Codex develops. So this becomes a better monetization strategy for APIs. I also want to put here that APIs itself, or the idea of an API, could also grow. So for example, let's say you are a content creator and you create a blog post every Monday about the future of AI. It potentially a monetization strategy, as opposed to having ads on your blog post, could be an API that agents could subscribe to in order for them to get updated information. So APIs could be a method for data streaming and monetization of that data streaming as well. So there is agents working, building, and I think that there's a lot of solutions coming about, especially in the Web 2 context, about how we can have agents communicate with each other more effectively, and especially communication when these agents are building software or are deployed in software. So some examples is MCP, Model Context Protocol by Anthropic. You also have Google that just came out with their agent-to-agent protocol, and there's IBM that just recently released a paper about their structure, which is called Agent Communication Protocol. And all three of these are just ways to rethink the API structure API structures that we've been using, and finding a different way for agents or agentic workflows or agentic software to integrate with external data sources or external functionality in a more streamlined way where humans don't become the bottleneck. One of the most popular, I think, is MCPs. And there's like all sorts of MCPs that you have now. And an MCP server, it's Model Context Protocol server. And this is kind of like a wrapper around an API, which makes it easier for an agent to be able to interact with that service without having to rely too much on humans to kind of configure it. There's Zapier MCP servers that allow you to get some of the functionality from the Zapier website, Notion, GitHub, HubSpot, etc. And even though these MCPs are a good step in the right direction from APIs, which are very limited for agentic workflows and agentic software, there's still gaps. I think one of the major gaps is that there's no native monetization structure when it comes to an MCP or any sort of Web 2 agentic communication protocol. There's also been a lot of instances of security or authentication bottlenecks with MCP servers. And then there's also this poor discoverability of services when you're thinking about MCP. It still requires a human to kind of set up all of the different servers and contexts and APIs in order for the agent to be able to do their workflows or to build their software. So I think that this is a perfect example of how Web3 can actually help AI in general, even in a Web 2 setting, because on-chain autonomous agents provide a way to monetize these interactions between agents. It has trustless validation. It's modular. So Web3 could be a solution to having a better streamlined process for agentic communication. And then this is where agentic APIs could come into play. So if you think about a traditional API, you have your clients, which is like a website or an app. It will send a payload, which can be a post, can be a read, requesting information or sending information, and then there's a server that processes that post. In order for the client to be able to effectively send these payloads, the client has to have a good understanding of the API functions that it needs to call and the structure of the payload that it needs to send in order for it to work effectively. But if you think about an agentic API, you can think of it as maybe it's a coding agent, or it's some sort of agentic software that is a requester, and then there's a representative agentic API that is able to represent the software that's on the server. And then instead of the consumers of the API needing to know about the structure of the underlying functions, etc., it could actually interact with the other agent via LLM, asking for information, sending answers, teaching, learning, and then also negotiating. Because these are on-chain agents, they're actually able to subscribe to each other or to determine a payment for whatever type of functionality or data that is shared within the APIs. So this new type of agentic API makes it more discoverable. It makes agentic software or coding agents, they're able to pay or subscribe for the software natively within their wallets. And then it also adds a validation and some security, because agents can actually validate if they're getting data, where that data is coming from, etc. Yeah, so just a summary, like traditional APIs, they have a lot of bottlenecks when it comes to agentic workflows and agentic software. But agentic APIs, especially on-chain APIs, could be a solution to some of these challenges that people are facing even in Web3, Web2 AI. And so then you can go from B2B, which is business to business to consumer, to actually business to agent, where if you're a builder, you can actually be thinking about monetizing your data or functionality, not as a human, as your end user, but as an agent, as your primary consumer of your technology as well. Yeah, so it's just thinking like, what if your next user, the next user of your software wasn't human, and then what does that look like? Yeah, so that's basically my talk. I hope that that was interesting. And if you are building at the intersection of Web3 and AI, I'd love to connect. There's some information on how to get in touch with me. And I think that there is time for any questions if anyone has any. Cool. Uh,
Great talk. From a payments perspective, I'm curious when it comes to like agents paying or subscribing to services. Are you thinking about kind of the Web2 payment rails or like something like an X402? Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah, I definitely think of it in a Web3 sense of the agents having a wallet and some sort of stable coin or something, and being able to transact natively within those stable coins. I believe that crypto is the best form of currency or the best money for agents. It's programmatic currency. So it's something that agents can manage on their own without needing human interactions or humans to set it up. If you look at a Web2 setting, you still need a human to put in the credit card, put in, whatever details to make the payments. So what we're thinking about is like, how do you get the agent to work as autonomously as possible? And really, I believe that in order for an agent to be truly autonomous, it has to be on some sort of Web3 guardrails. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Well, thank you all. Have a great rest of your experience at Cannes.